originally comes from the Latin word persevernatia, and it means abide by something strictly. We must be strict. Christianity is not something to be taken lightly. We should defend it. And we should even tell the world about Christianity. But you find we are compromising. And then how to persevere? Recall past perseverance. Take a step, even just a small one. Set a reasonable pace. Because we must set pace for what we want to do. If you are studying, go for it. If you are doing business, go for it. If you are preaching, preach it. And if you are in politics, don't compromise. Because the problem that we are facing today is the way we compromise with things. Character development describes the process writers form the characters in their writing. So in Nairobi, we have our own way of doing things because we have developed that. You find there are ways we are doing things. And to some extent, there are people who normally say, we cannot change that. And then we become cheated. Because people no longer live in truth. We also find ourselves talking many things, and little we do them, and we accomplish them. That is the society we have developed. But can we change that? And who is going to change that? It is you and me, so that we can move. And then number 3, Paul talked about hope. Character produces hope. And this is a feeling of expectation and desire for a particular thing to happen. So we have aspirations. We have desires. We have wishes, expectations, and ambitions. So we need to go for them. Hope matters. And we cannot live in a society whereby we are not concerned of one another. Social matters. How do we go about our social well-being? How do we go about our issues? You find today, we do things on our own. Wewe hujali mtu mwingine. Wewe ufikiri hata mtu mwingine. And whatever maybe you are doing, you are affecting it gives the other persons to live, hope to live. And then this is what the Lord has called us to do. That we must be mindful of ourselves. We must be mindful of other people. We must be mindful of what is surrounding me. Because if you are to develop character and values, it is not on me. It is on all of us. And we move together. As St. Andrew's Church, we must move together. From the teens, Sunday school, teens, youth, young parents, and even the adults, Kama and Mothers Union. We must live, we must work together. We must, our speakers, may the Lord be together with us. In the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit.
Wow, thank you ever so much, Archdeacon, for such a powerful devotion. Can we put our hearts together again to appreciate the Archdeacon? He has already set the pace. Thank you ever so much. Once again, I want to thank you for making it to this great day. And luckily, we already have our speaker, professor, is in the house. And therefore, we are right on track, isn't it? We are right on track. Unajua saa ingine watu wanasema tunaweza kuja hapa halafu sasa the guest speaker doesn't show up. And then we have to make up for it. So our time is gone, and because my role is to make sure that I invite him right away so that he can give his speech. But I want to take only 5 minutes before I invite him, and so I ask for your indulgence, just to remind ourselves what it is all about that we are here today. And I wanted to say, for those of you who are visiting, those who are not members of the St. Andrew's Zimmerman, this is an initiative of a program that we call the STEP program. And the STEP program, we have always reminded ourselves every Sunday that it is a sustainable, transition, evolving program. Sustainable because we want to have a well-strengthened structure that is going to outlive us. Transition because we want to make sure that we have a very clear cycle, moving from one step to the other, right from Sunday school and going all the way to the integration into the church. And then evolving because we want to make sure that the program will keep evolving based on the context at the time. And therefore we want to make sure that we are relevant, we have relevance, we want to make sure that we are in context, and we want to make sure that as we go through the transition, we all understand that we are also in an evolving world. And it is a program because as the St. Andrew's Church, we want to have a long-term plan. That is why we are calling it a program. It is integrated. We want to make sure that that program is actually going to be felt in each and every group. That is why we have invited all of you. We have the youth, we have the teens, we have the Kama, we have the Mothers Union. We have everybody with us here today, so that as we continue to talk about the STEP program, then we are all part and parcel. And just to remind ourselves again, we came up with a framework, and we are trying to address a question that we have kept reminding ourselves. How can St. Andrew's Church Zimmerman transition 100% of children, teens, youth to the main church? And this is in acknowledgement that we have so many children in our Sunday school, over 700, but the number that transitions into the teens is a far much smaller number. As we transition from the teens now to the youth, it even gets much smaller. And as we continue to the integration into the main church, then the number is actually even too thin, even to count. And therefore we are saying as a church, we want to address that because it's a pyramid we cannot actually afford to keep if we have a future church at the St. Andrew's. And we believe that this is a seed that we are planting at the St. Andrew's that is going actually to mushroom and grow into the diocese and even into other dioceses and into the world. A program every now and then. This is our second symposium. We had a symposium last year that was on the 3rd of December. And during that symposium, we were trying to address the problem of the youth, and we were talking about repositioning for the. We made character and values our theme right from the beginning. Are we doing that? We are saying we want to create our future as a church and also the society, because we have to redefine our personality, our leadership style, and what we need, so that as we build character and values, then we know we are building a future for our society. We are building a future for our church. And for us today, we would want to make sure that we can reflect and also understand ourselves, because it starts with us in relation to how we behave and why we behave the way we do in terms of our characters and even our values. And therefore, we recognize a very pertinent problem in our society today. The church and the society is definitely under threat. We know, like I said, we have that pyramid kind form of a structure where we are not translating as many into the main church as we ought to. We also recognize that the society is decaying in terms of character and the values. And we are asking, how come our children, the ones that we have actually brought up, when they get into the job market, when they get into the society, they are actually having almost the same kind of problems that we had when we were young, when we were youth, when our parents would say, vijana wa siku hizi. Even today we are still saying, vijana wa siku hizi. How can we change that narrative? How can we build a character and a value of a fulfilled Christian adult who makes a difference in the society and who is well formed to face the challenges that we are actually facing today? So we would want to ask ourselves, do we even know ourselves? So that it is not about who you know in the places of jobs or even in the services in government. It is not where they are located. It is more about that, you know, if you visited any public office, we have built a character, and that person will serve you without fear or favor and will not ask for a kitu kidogo. And we shall all be equal. So we would want to start nurturing that. And as somebody said, if you wanted to plant a tree 25 years ago, the time to plant the tree is when? It is now. You cannot wait any longer. The issue of the church then repositioning itself to take its position in building character and values is not yesterday. It is now, and making sure that we walk with you, the young ones, the teens, the youth, and even within our church, and we instill that character that is so much required in our society. Having said that, I want to welcome our main speaker, PLO Lumumba, who is a very renowned person in this country. And Bona PLO, we actually came for you because we have known you over years. We have known you in the church. We have known you in public places. And therefore, we have a lot of confidence. And we believe that the people who are coming here would want to really say, when I grow up, I want to be like, like PLO Lumumba. And therefore, Professor, we are so pleased to have you today. This is the St. Andrew's Church Zimmerman. We are part of the Anglican Church Nairobi Diocese, of which you know you are also an Anglican. And therefore, feel free to engage with them and to talk to them. They will engage with you. And we are all very expectant of what you have to bring to us today. So with those words, can we rise and then we welcome PLO Lumumba, Professor, as he shares with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You may resume your seats. First, let me start by thanking you for inviting me. It is very tempting to deliver a lecture, but I will not. I will simply engage you in order to understand whether you are Christians at all. And the very first question that I'll ask, why do you say you are a Christian? Why? Is it because at one time you are baptized And on the day of baptism, you say you rejected the devil and all his works? Is that why you say you are Christian? I want you to ask that question. Many times when I have the opportunity to share my thoughts with those who claim to be Christians, I ask them, what makes a Christian? If you look at the Bible, when were Christians first called Christians? In the early days, to be called a Christian was not a good thing. I think it was in Antioch, when those who were following the gospel as preached at that time by Paul were referred to as the followers of Christos. It was not a good thing to be a follower of Christos. It exposed you in many ways. If you claim you are Christian, what is the litmus test? What test must you pass? If you say you are born again, what does it mean? When I go to my rural home, I meet individuals who know the exact hour. Says it was on Sunday at 10 a.m. when the Lord appeared unto me and I was born again. They make it look very dramatic, but I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed because when you make the claim that you are a Christian, but your conduct is completely the opposite, then you are not a Christian. You are merely making the claim. In your life, I ask people, when people mention your name, what immediately comes to the mind of those who like you and those who don't like you? There are people in this country, when you mention them, I say, that is a thief. That is the character that they have come up with, and I don't want to mention any of them, but you know them. You say, so-and-so, thief. So-and-so, liar. So-and-so, this. It is the testimony of others that defines who you are. Several years ago, I was in Tanzania at the airport and I met a gentleman who was a Catholic priest. And we got into a conversation about Christianity. And during the conversation I say, if we claim that we are a Christian country, 80% I think in Kenya, why is it that theft is so rampant? Yet there is a commandment which says, thou shalt not steal. Why? Why is it that when I sit in my church and the clergy invite us to take the Holy Communion, they feel obliged to say, as you come to the Lord's table, take care of your bags in church, not anywhere else, in church. When you go, I do not know how they do it at St. Andrew's Zimmerman, but it used to be the case that when you are collecting the tithes and offerings, you had an open thing you would just put in. Then the opening became smaller and smaller so that you can only put and you can't remove. Because there were people who, when they were giving their money, they put and they take out. And they are in church. They were baptized. And they said, I reject the devil and all his works. What is it? I asked that priest. And he reminded me that at one time, in a Muslim country, they were traveling, and somebody who is a Muslim said, you can leave your bag. There are no Christians here. Who is a Christian? This is the question. Several years ago, when our Archbishop was Archbishop Gitari, and I used to worship at the All Saints Cathedral at the 11 o'clock family service, before the new liturgy, which you know. And I wrote to Archbishop Gitari in the following terms. I told him, Your Grace, I've been attending the church since 1975. But for the last 1 year, when I visit the church and I worship, I feel there is a spiritual desert. I don't feel the word. Because what happens is when we are called upon to worship, the clergy tell us, turn to page this and read the prayer of St. Chrysostom. And we all turn to the page and we read. Turn to this page and read the Nicene Creed, and we turn to the page and we read the Nicene Creed. Turn to this page and we read the summary of the law. And I told His Grace that you are Christians over whom you are spiritual head. If you ask them to tell you or to recite the Lord's Prayer, they do not know. They do not know. Even if you ask them to say the grace, you'll see them mumbling. You see their mouths appear to be moving, but they are saying nothing because they do not know. If you ask them to recite the 10 commandments in the order in which they were given, not just random, saying thou shalt not, in the order in which Moses received them and gave them to the Israelites, they do not know. Their faith is mouth deep. It is not in their minds and hearts. They are Sunday Christians whose only claim is that they claim to be Christians, but their conduct is completely unchristian. So that if there was a rapture today, many of them would not see the glory of God. Not that I speak for God, but many of them would not. Then that clergy told me in Kiswahili, Mungu hawaiti wanaostahili, anawastahilisha anaowaita. Mnanielewa? Mungu haiti wanaostahili, anawastahilisha anaowaita. So we have a form of Christianity of self-righteousness. It is the form of Christianity that Paul speaks of in his second letter to Timothy at chapter 3, which I commend to you to go and read. Paul's second letter to Timothy at chapter 3. He talks of a form of Christianity where we become lovers of ourselves, and yet we are not following the word of God. And that is why our societies are troubled. That is why, despite the fact that we are 80% Christians, we claim all evil is alive and well. That is why we identify ourselves negatively by our ethnicity. Yet the Bible says there are no Jews, no Gentiles. But yet, even in church, when we are called upon to make decisions, you begin to ask, is he Kikuyu or Kamba or Luo or Luhya or Kalenjin? Yet we are Christians, and yet there are no Jews, no Gentiles. This is what we must ask ourselves. Because as long as we pretend, our goose is cooked. We are merely pretending. The ritual that we perform when we come to church will add to nothing. They will not save you. And we must make a choice. If you want to be a person of character, as the Reverend said as I walked in, there are difficult choices that must be made. And you must be clear at all times. When you believe in something, say it without fear of death or anything. Because that is what it is. Character is about courage and conviction in what you believe in. I want you this evening to go and read a character in the Bible called Elijah. And when you read this, I think it's to be found in the book of Kings. When there is a contestation between God and Baal. And he tells Ahab, go and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Ashtoreth, who has dined with your wife Jezebel, and let them come to Mount Carmel, that we may know who is God. And if God is God, let him be worshipped. And if Baal is Baal, let him be worshipped. And you know what happened in Carmel. They did what they did. They prayed unto their God, and nothing happened. Because, and this is how I understand it, you cannot afford to be lukewarm. You are either this or that. There is no neutrality when you are taking these positions. But are we prepared to make those choices? Many times we are not. Many times we want to go with the crowd. What is the majority doing? This is what we are going to do. You don't want to stand alone because you fear being alone. You don't want to speak the truth because you are looking for something from somebody, and therefore you are worshiping fellow man. True character is about making choices. And sometimes you may be wrong in the choices you make. And also having the courage, if you make a wrong choice, to go back and say, I made a mistake. The whole idea of choice is consistent in the Bible. I want you to go and read the book of the prophet Joshua, chapter 24. When he assembles the Israelites and reminds them, remember, before our forefathers came, Nahor and Abraham, they worshipped other gods before they crossed the river. And when they crossed the river, they worshipped the gods of the Amorites in whose land they reside. Choose you now whom you shall serve, the Lord God or the Lord of the Amorites. As for me and my house, I shall serve the Lord. That is choice. Not always right. In fact, the truth is lonely. When you are in a place of truth, it is a lonely place. The story of Job is a story that tells you how painful and how lonely it can be. Your own friends or those who claim to be your friend will come and say, but this God that you worship, why are you suffering so much? There are things that we can do. The younger ones may not know. But if you walk around Nairobi on electricity posts, there are people who advertise, mganga kutoka Kitui, Professor Maji Marefu, we teach you how to pata mali. So, if you are undecided, you come to God on Sunday and pray, God, oh, save me from my plight. Then you go to Maji Marefu And Majimarefu also does certain things. So when you are saved from your plight, you do not know whether it was God or it was Majimarefu. You are in a state of confusion. So you must be clear. Clarity. There are 4 characters in the Bible whom I commend even to the younger people. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Daniel. Their story is told in the Bible. And we are told that what happened, it was during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. And when he had captured them, he brought all the people to his land in Babylon. And the very first time when they came, the very first time, anybody who wants to change you, the thing they do is to change your name. Have you ever discovered that? That the very first thing is that they change your name. And this is to be found even in the Bible. When God has met people that he wants to use, he changes their name. When you are Sarai, you become Sarah. When you are Abram, you become Abraham. He changes your name. But does the mere change of a name change you? No, it does not. So Ananiah, Mishael, and Azariah become Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Daniel becomes Belteshazzar. Their names are changed. They do not complain. They are young men. They go to what could possibly be the university in modern times. And we are told that they are isolated from the rest of the society. And the workers of the king are told to feed them on choice food, because these are chosen of the king. And this is when you begin to see character. They say, we do not know to whom this food has been sacrificed. Therefore, we will not partake of it. Then the worker says, but the king will punish us if they know that you are not eating, and if your health is not as good as it should be. Say, try us out. And they are exempted, and we are told that they were even healthier than the others. You can now begin to see character. The things that I can compromise and the things that I cannot compromise. Are there things that you are prepared to die for? And there are things that you can accommodate because they do not affect you in any big way. That is called character. Then we are told when they graduated, they were 10 times better than the others. Because their understanding of the mission of Christ was that Christ had come, they would become senior people in his earthly administration. But that was not his mission. His mission was far greater. I think he tells Philip, when Philip tells him, but we have been with you, now show us the Father. He says, Philip, I have been with you all this while, and you are asking me to show the Father, show you the Father is in me. And I am in the Father. This is character. And when you are a person of character, as I've already said, you do not have many friends. They think that you are queer, different. Why do you want things to be done in the right way? When the shortest avenue will guarantee you quick results. This is the world that we live in. Are you prepared to remain true to the things that define you and therefore make you a Christian? Which means to do that which is good and right, because it is good and right to do that which is good and right. In private and in public. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and Belshazzar attract enemies. That is why Daniel is kept in the lion's den, because his enemies have conspired against him many times. That will happen to you if you are a person of character. You will be in the lion's den. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they tell the king Nebuchadnezzar, this man is not worshiping your God. Therefore, they create a god and they make a pronouncement that everybody must worship that god. And then they report to the king. And the king says, lights a fire. And they say they must be put in the furnace. And they say, this time round, light that fire and make it 7 times hotter than usual. And those who threw them in were consumed by the fire. And this is what they tell the king. Before they are thrown into the fire, they say, the God whom we worship will save us. But even if he does not, that to me is the most powerful thing. They are not just worshiping the God because he'll save them. He says, even if he does not, they still remain faithful. Many of us only worship God because he'll give us what we want. Immediately he does not give us what we want, then we say he's not a God. Why does he not give us what we want? We go to church as a lottery. Many of you pay tithe because you are in a casino. You think that you have bought a lottery ticket and God will therefore bring you millions. That's why you pay tithe. Wrong intentions. And God is an inspector of hearts and minds. He's capable of knowing, are you giving the money because you expect something in return? You are playing a lottery. I've given 10,000. Let me see how that God gives. He will not, because he knows you are not genuine. He knows. Sometimes what you think is painful and adverse, what he uses to give something that is better for you. So our Christianity must be questioned. The former president of Tanzania, Mwalimu Nyerere, used to say 3 things on 2 different occasions. He says, siri ya maendeleo ni watu, ardhi na siasa safi. Watu, ardhi na siasa safi. At that time we were calling Tanzania a man-eat-nothing society, and they were calling us a man-eat-man society. 1970 says, siri ya maendeleo ni watu, ardhi na siasa safi. And he was speaking in Dar es Salaam in 1995. And he told his audience, hapa Tanzania, hatutambuani kwa makabila. Huyu ni waziri wangu George Kahama. Sijui anatoka kabila gani, sijui na sijali. Ninachojali ni uwezo wake wa kuchapa kazi kwa maslahi ya Watanzania. And he then said, hata dini yake sijali. Ninachojua ni kwamba yeye ni mchapaji kazi, amelelewa vizuri. Na aniambii, watu wananikashifu. People had blamed him that he had only put Catholics in his cabinet. He said, sijui dini yao. Dini zao sijui wala sijali. Na wakiwa wazuri, wengine najua ni Waislamu, wengine najua ni Wakristo. Lakini ni watu wa aina gani? Then he said, siri ya maendeleo ni vijana wenye malezi bora, vijana wenye malezi bora, siha njema na bongo kali. Malezi bora, siha njema na bongo kali. Ndio siri ya maendeleo. I say this because This man called Nyerere, there is now a process in the Catholic Church which is going on since July to make him a saint in the Catholic Church. If you look at the diocese in Dar es Salaam, the Catholic Church has now put a notice the possible canonization of Julius Kambarage Nyerere. Character. Character. Here, if you say anybody is a politician in Kenya, huyo ni mwizi kabisa, wote. What? But he demonstrated that you can be a politician without being a thief. When he left office, he had only $8,000 in his account. 8,000, the equivalent after serving for 24 years. A Kenyan politician would spend that for dinner. MCA, wachana na hao wengine, MCA. Character. Because a nation suffers because we don't have men and women of character. There is a university with whom I associate in Ghana called Acheshi University. It is a university where they don't supervise examination. When the examination have been set, mnawachwa mnafanya mtihani. Hakuna supervision. Hapa Kenya, mkitahiniwa, unafikiria ni vita. Examination, vijana wadogo wa primary shule za msingi wanafanya mtihani, unaona mtu na bunduki. Is life and death. Why is it that we are doing that? Character. Because ukiwachwa hivi utakuwa mwenye kuiba. Sasa hiyo ni taifa ya aina gani? Mitihani. I'm sure you've seen it, how we guard our examination. In Acheshi, they are trying to demonstrate that if you have a country and a society where people are people of character, you don't need supervision. You just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. That is who a Christian is. My brother was speaking about the transition from Sunday school through to adulthood. You start Sunday and then you go into the teens, then you go into the main church, the transition, and you so very well described it that the pyramid is becoming thinner and the base is very large, but we are losing as we go up. When I go to my rural home, I mean, it's only women, widows. When I go to church, nobody. Hakuna vijana. Hakina mama, peke yao. So all things are being tried in the church to retain people in the church. We don't retain them. Why? What is happening? That we are not going to church. And even when we go to church, I see people doing this. The service should be 1 hour. Why is the preacher taking so long? And people used to complain at the All Saints Cathedral because the 7 o'clock service extended for 10 minutes, even 5 minutes. They write to the provost, complaining against the preacher. Why did he overshoot? Surely. What is happening to it? When we are with God, we are in a hurry. When we are in bars, we are in no hurry. But when we want to interact with God, we are in a hurry. In other words, we have made attendance of church a mere ritual. It is something we do on Sunday. It is something we do on Saturday. Sometimes we do it so that we may appear good as churchgoers. But who are you cheating? Man, me, and you can cheat us. But are you cheating God? You can't. So to me, we are living in very difficult times. Perhaps more difficult than any other time for the younger people. When we were growing, the information that you did not want to reach us, that our parents did not want to reach us, did not reach us. But today, through the medium of the phone, your children have the world at their fingertips. You and me buy phones out of which we only use 20%. But your 9-year-old boy and girl know how to use it. And if you are confused, they are the ones who tell you press things like this. For you, it's only to receive WhatsApp messages, which some of us don't even know how to receive, or to send a message. So you are competing with information which is unfiltered from all over the world. You are competing with information that is bombarding character. It is not cool to be nice. The young ones will tell you that is not cool. It's cool to do what society sets. To be rebellious is cool. There are now young people, and I know 1 or 2 of my friends who have lost their children who are saying, we want to commit suicide. And they do it through the medium of the phone, because they are not grounded in character development. These are difficult times. These are difficult times for you clergy. When we, the laity, what we do is to find fault with everything you do. And I'm sure you are victims of that. You try to do the right thing, and our duty is to find fault with you. If you are an assistant, a clergy, we are complaining to the provost every other day, or the head of the church, you did this, or you did not do this. And sometimes you wonder, was it worth it? Or I should have done something else. To the parents, these are difficult times. You tell your children to study this. At the end of the process, they say, I want to be a DJ. And you say, now, I did not train my child to be a DJ, but what is wrong with being a DJ? What is wrong with it? I want to be a doctor. I want my son to be a doctor, because you yourself wanted to be a doctor and you failed. You now want to fulfill your ambition through your children. These are difficult times. Your children have more information than you have, even when they pretend not to. Sometimes they laugh at you. They say, Buddha. And when we were growing up, that is how Sheng came about. And Sheng is changing. Idungie nangos. Sheng is changing by the day, because they are trying to avoid you. What do we do in those circumstances? Difficult times. But yet, we are told that character defeats all. I want you to go and read the book of Matthew, that chapter 24, verse 24. And if somebody had the Bible, I would have loved for it to be read, because I love it. Matthew 24, 24. Because there is also in these last days many confusing forms of Christianity. Which also, who has found Matthew 24, 24? Who can read it aloud? Yes, please. For false Christs and false prophets shall arise and do great wonders. And if it were possible, even the very elect would be deceived by them. And these are those times. Just look. It's not for me to judge, but just look, whether it is in Kenya or in any part of the world, many people are rising and they are working wonders. and we will be confused by them. How can you not be confused? Is by having the spirit of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The ability to make a discernment. How many of you here have watched a movie called Roots by Alex Haley? You young people, I want you to go and watch the movie. It's called Roots. You'll find it. Roots is a movie about a character called Kunta Kinte. How many of you have heard of the name Kunta Kinte? If you have, I want you to go and watch that movie. It's one of the most iconic movies ever played about slavery in America. Kunta Kinte is taken as a slave from Jufure village in the Gambia and taken to the United States of America. And ultimately, of course, the very first thing that they do is that they beat him up in order to change his name from Kunta Kinte to Toby. He accepts and answers to the name Toby, but when his children are born, he tells them, never forget that we are Kunta Kinte. And many years later, 100 years later, Alex Haley, who is a descendant of Kunta Kinte, traces his lineage to Jufure village in the Gambia and makes the film called Roots. Watch that movie. How many of you here have watched the film Ten Commandments? What do you watch? I want you to go and watch the film Ten Commandments. There are many 10 commandments, but it's a long movie, 3.5 hours, I think, 3.5 hours. Go and watch it. And the one that I want you to watch is the 1956 version by Cecil B. DeMille with Charlton Heston as Moses, Yul Brynner as Ramesses III, and John Derek as Joshua. And I'm citing to you these because when Moses, I want you to watch this particular segment very carefully. When the Israelites have been brought to the bottom of Mount Sinai, Moses goes into the mountain for 40 days. And when they are up there, when he is up there, there is rebellion. And the rebellion is led by the sons of Korah, whom you must have met in the Bible. The sons of Korah and Dathan. They succeed in persuading Harun and Miriam to make unto themselves a god like they worshipped in Egypt. And in the dramatization, which is not found in the Bible, but it dramatizes it. When they are worshiping this god, Moses now receives the 10 Commandments. And as he comes down with the 2 tablets of the 10 Commandments, Joshua meets him halfway and tells him there is rebellion. He tells him there is noise down there. And Moses tells him, the noise that you hear down there is not the noise of danger, is the noise of joy and celebration. The people have rebelled against God. And when he approaches with the 2 tablets, if you see the image of Moses, is the image that comes out of 10 Commandments by Cecil B. DeMille. And he has 2 tablets. And Dathan in the movie tells him, you have made laws unto yourself that you may become Lord over us. We are free. And this is what Moses says. Those who are with the Lord, come unto me. And then he says, there is no freedom without the law. Freedom must be within the law, and those who shall not live by the law shall die by the law. And the story is now told in the Bible. The earth opened its mouth, and Dathan and everybody else, the sons of Korah, were swallowed. What is my point? When you are a Christian and when you want to have character, there must be laws. Kile vile ambavyo vinaitwa kwa Kiswahili, kuna miko na maadili. Kuna miko. Vitu ambavyo tunaviita miko kwa Kiingereza vinaitwa taboos. Miko na maadili. Ideals. Lazima uwe na miko. the things that you just don't do. Na inajulikana hivyo. Inajulikana huyo mtu uongo hasemi. Hana umbea. Mnajua umbea? Kuna wengine wambea tu. Akitaka kwanza umbea anakuambia, you reverend, umemwona hivi karibuni? That's the way they start, honestly. Sijamuona. Lakini huyo nitakuambia tu na usiambie mtu. And he has already told 10 other people na anakuambia usiambie mtu. Umbea. Maadili, miko, taboos. When you want to be a person of character, there are things ijulikane he or she will not do. And ijulikane ya kwamba kuna vitu ambavyo atavifanya. And I'm sure amongst you there are people who are known for that. Hataki mchezo. For good reason. So, mimi nawaelezeni kama Wakristo tuna jukumu la kipekee. Umejua mti wa mwembe hasemi mimi ni mti wa mwembe. Unaona matunda. Biblia inasema ya kwamba kila mti inajulikana kwa matunda. Basi tujulikane kwa matunda. Tujulikane kwa matunda. Not so long ago, I gave an interview about the people called LGBTQ. And the interviewer was from South African Broadcasting Corporation, and he was asking me, kwa kinyemela tu. Nikamwambia, niulize swali hivi, nitajibu hivi. Nikamwambia, wasenge na wasagaji mimi ninawapinga kila kukicha. Akasema ni kweli hivyo. Nikasema ni kweli hivyo. Kwa kuwa katika Biblia imesemwa wazi tu ya kwamba wasenge na wasagaji ni watenda dhambi. After that, I was invited to a place called in South Africa. So there were demonstrations against me. Wengine wasema they'll kill me. They say if I go to South Africa. So my host was saying, people are saying, don't go, you'll be killed. I said, that is cowardice. If it was appointed that that is the day that I'll die, I'll go. And I went. And they were there shouting, I said, when you make a choice, you must be prepared to sacrifice. When you make a choice, if you are not prepared to sacrifice, nyamaza. Usiseme, weka mwoga tuko. Lakini ukisimamia chochote kile, uwe na mshupavu wa kujitokeza. Nikimalizia, there is a person called Martin Luther. How many of you have heard Martin Luther? No, there are two. The one that you possibly know is Martin Luther King Jr. But Martin Luther, yule wa kwanza, yule ambaye alifanya mgawanyiko wa kanisa mwanzoni, the reformist, the 95 theses at the church in Wittenberg. Mnamkumbuka huyo? The younger person. Have you heard of a person called Martin Luther? I want you to go and read him. The one who penned the 95 theses at the church in Wittenberg. Akikemea kanisa. Akikemea maaskofu. Akikemea papa wa Roma, kanisa ya Roma. Akisema nyinyi ni walaghai. Nyinyi hamfuati kile ambacho kimeelezwa katika Biblia. Kwa hivyo nasema hivi, lazima mujirekebishe. Akaitwa hivi. Akasema sitabadilisha maoni. Kwa kuwa kwa kusoma Biblia kwangu, I've seen that what you are doing is wrong. Are you prepared? That is character. Character. It's not easy. It is easy to go with the flow. The last person I want to talk about is Socrates. How many of you here have heard of a person called Socrates? He was said to be the ugliest man in Athens. Kumuona tu sura ilikuwa inatisha tu. How many of you have heard of Socrates? You must go and read. I see young people who are not reading here. You must go and read. Because Socrates was charged with the offense of corrupting the youth. That was his offense. He was telling the youth the truth, and they said, let us take you into exile. He refused. He said, no. There is a book called The Last Days of Socrates, which I commend to you to read. He said, Athens has given me protection, Athens my land. If by their laws they find that I have committed an offense, I shall die by their law. And he drank hemlock. Go and read Socrates. Lastly, for young people, if you want to be a person of character, you must read. Knowledge is very important. I have a book which I started writing things in 1975, when most of the young people here were not born. I was in Form 1. It is called The Book of Nonsense. That is the title that I gave the book. I still have it today. 48 years later. And in that book, when I read it, the things that I wrote there were very interesting. The deepest lake in the world, the deepest lakes in the world, the longest rivers in the world, the biggest continents in the world. These are the things that I wrote, and I still write it, and I have them. I still write such things. Because when you have knowledge, knowledge gives you confidence. Knowledge gives you confidence. When you have knowledge, you are confident. When you have knowledge, you can speak from your heart. When you have knowledge, you are humble. Because knowledge also makes you understand that you do not know everything. Humility is also very important. Sometimes you ought to listen to things that you know. The thing that I'm saying here, they know. They preach it every day.
Engagement session for us. Questions?
Oh, comment. If you have a bright idea. Yes, somebody else. Oh, yes, sir.
Yes. Do you have an extra microphone there? But you can ask as
Ask, I'll repeat it. Yes, please. Please.
Nice meeting you, Brother Proper. In my consideration and my aspirations, the church sits at a very pivotal point in actually cementing the family fabric and the general social upbringing. We have gotten to the point where we have some cohort of churches that do not subscribe to the word as it is said, but these particular churches have gotten that massive following to the position that those would be my three questions.
Thank you. Let me tell you, it is going to get worse. Like me. Because they keep on promoting their books. And because I read, I say, but I want what the Bible says, not what you are saying. You see, there's a lot of people who now read Bible out of context. You find somebody picks a particular verse of the Bible and they run away with it. I want you to go and listen to a sermon delivered by Billy Graham in Chicago in 1970. It's called, Who is Jesus Christ? You can Google it. 1970, Who is Jesus Christ? Billy Graham. And he says, who is this man? This man whom when you meet, your life never remained the same. Whether you become good or bad is another thing, but your life never remains the same. And I want you to read it. And when you look at the world today, and I think, you know, when we were reading the Bible in the earlier days, before internet, before all this technology, we assumed that how can Christ appear and he can be seen all over the world? But I now know that he can be seen instantaneously. We are seeing the war in Gaza, and it's as if we are in the theater of war. We are in the war in Ukraine, and we're seeing the theater of war. It is going on certain ideals which are implementable, particularly when people are young. Waswahili wanasema samaki mkunje angali mbichi. Samaki mkunje angali mbichi. Sasa hawa ni samaki ambao bado mbichi. Unawakunja sasa. And how do you do that? By inculcating those ideals in them. Because the world is not about avoiding problems. Even if you avoid problems, they'll find you problems zitakuja kwako hivi. Where you are sitting. There'll be temptation, there'll be trials and temptations. Even Christ himself, in his human form, had moments when he nearly surrendered at the Garden of Gethsemane. He said, let this cup pass, but let your will be done. You must be in a position where you can say that. And that is why, who are your friends? After I come from this, I'm going to a book club. We are today reading The Beekeeper of Aleppo. This is our book that we are reading. And we have had this book club for a long time. When we go there, we'll be reading a poem, we'll be reading the book, Beekeeper of Aleppo, then we discuss the book, then we will partake of certain beverages, and we go home. That is a friendship. We keep ourselves alive that way. The book club that I'm going in is of my age. Then I belong to another one where I'm the oldest. So the types of book that we are reading, the other one we are only reading African books. And somebody has already sent us a 3-page summary of the book, which means that she has read it. And we move from each other's house every month. What are we trying to? We are 11 of us. What we are doing is creating a circle of friends who think almost alike on fundamental issues. When we go to our homes, our children will be there. They know this is my friend, that is my friend. You as a parent, do you bring your friends home? Do your children know who your friends are? Do you know who are the friends of your children? Or when you come home and you see a friend of your child, you say, who are those? Who are those? And then your child is in trouble that day. Keep them on a short leash to the extent that is humanly possible. Today, you are here. In the next few years, your child will possibly travel to Canada. You will not be there. How will you monitor? The only thing that you will have faith in are the ideals. I know Njoroge, my son, there are things he will not do. Because of the training, because nilimkunja angali mbichi, hata kuwa mlevi. That is the best you can do. And once again, you can see that. Sometimes I look at Christ, even if you are not a Christian. There is a book Desmond Tutu has written. I don't know how many of you have read the book. Desmond Tutu, God is not a Christian. How many of you have read it? You must read it. It's a good book in which he is trying, God is not a Christian by Desmond Tutu. And there is a verse there where he says that when the Israelites had escaped and they were laughing and celebrating that the Egyptian had died, God appeared unto them and said, why are you celebrating and my children have died? You see the apparent contradiction, but there is no contradiction. How many times do you punish your child who has stolen sugar and licked it? Don't you just love them? And your other children who are not being punished are celebrating. Leo umeona unakula sukari kila siku. Sometimes you are punished because you are loved. The story of the prodigal son speaks to that. So those churches that you are talking about, haujaona kitu ndugu. Unastaajabu ya Musa, bado haujaona ya Firauni. When you travel across Africa, sometimes about 2 weeks ago I was in Kibera. Almost every other house is a church. And they have run short of names nowadays. Tabernacle of this, helicopter of this. They wamechukua kila jina. Wana majina sasa. So unaona all strange names. That is predicted in the Bible. Matthew 24 is saying exactly, and they shall work wonders. But yet there will be what is called the Anahim, the remnants. And if you read Paul's second letter to Timothy, they talk about, he say, but just like Jannes and Jambres disturbed Moses in the desert, they too will fail. So I can't agree with you more. And it's not easy. Even as I'm saying, it is not easy. Even for you as an adult, it is not easy. It's how much more difficult for your children. But you must keep on keeping on, doing the best you can. Sometimes you do the best you can. That is all you can do. What else can you do other than the best you can? And then there is this tendency of looking at the church as the clergy. The clergy are not the church. In the first century, nobody had such buildings. The church was where you congregated. So this distinction between the clergy and the laity, if you read the Bible, I think it's in the Acts of the Apostles, it is Paul who says that he liked the Christians of Berea. Have you met that? Are you a Christian of Berea? The Christians of Berea were the ones who, after the word had been preached, they went home and they looked at saying, na huyo kasisi alisema vitu hapa. Hivi vitu pia viko kwa Biblia kweli? Then the following day they come and ask questions. That is a Christian of Berea. A Christian of Berea is inquisitive. Have you ever found that when you read the Bible, there are things that you read many years ago, and then sometimes you find, but how did I not see this? How did I not see this? But I've been reading the Bible all this while, but then something comes out alive out of that verse. And you read, there are certain portions of the Bible that you read almost every other day, because there is a new revelation every day. So those churches, haujaona. When you go to Nigeria and Ghana, you will see. I think Kenya is just about there. When you drive towards Nakuru from Kikuyu, I want you to count the number of churches on either side of the road. There are many. You go to Mukuru kwa Njenga. You go to Githogoro. They are there. You go to Zimmerman, where St. Andrews is. You go to Zimmerman. So unaona makanisa mengi tu na yataendelea kuwa mengi, but God in his divine wisdom. This is why we are told to choose and to be clear about what you are doing. Not easy. It requires divine discernment. This is why Matthew says, even the very elect It's easy to be deceived because we are people who want wonders. And this is not new. Even the disciples of Jesus said, show us wonders. And he says, there shall be no sign except the sign of Jonah. Because we want drama, we want spectacle. And God is not an abracadabra God who just wants to please you because you want to be pleased. Jesus did not perform miracles at all times. I hear some people saying that why did Jesus not just heal everybody? That is a misunderstanding of the message of God, really. And sometimes when I look at it, and this is my understanding, the miracles of Christ were very deliberate. Sometimes they were meant to educate us. He takes the soil and puts it on the eyes of somebody and says, go and wash your face. What is he telling us? Is he not also telling us that healing can come from the elements of the earth? That is what he's telling us. And then, when he's feeding the 5,000, he says, who amongst you here has brought something? Then there are fishes and bread. Wouldn't it have been easy for him to just summon manna from heaven? But he was telling us that the miracle that you seek is from the elements that you have. And you can see it whenever there are miracles. Even Moses, God asked him, what do you have in your hand? He says, I have nothing except this rod. He says, that very same is the thing that you are going to make you to rule over kings. And I think it is Elijah. Is it Elijah and the widow with the oil? He says, what do you have? He says, I have nothing except a little oil. What do you have is the question. And when the wedding in Cana, what does he say? Go and bring water. He does not summon wine from heaven. It's from the elements. And I'm saying this in order to demonstrate to you that you've seen nothing yet. But you must have a spirit of discernment and seek divine intervention. These things are not possible just because of you and me. We are weak. We are thoroughly weak. We'll be overwhelmed. Another question. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Prof. I have two questions. One is a concern. If you could comment on the issue of time as an issue of character, because I think sometimes time management has become an issue. If people are to undertake an activity, I think 3/4 of that time is wasted. We have young people here who maybe they are supposed to live on maybe a timetable, but then you realize what is the timetable, what is provided in the timetable, 3/4 of that is not utilized. Then the second thing, Prof, is about, you mentioned about 3 things that Mwalimu said about Syria maendeleo, ardhi, asante.
Let's get another one.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Saul, and I have 2 questions. Question number 1, yes, we know very well that the Bible says, in fact, we've talked about it partially, that train up a child the way he should be, and he will not depart away from it when he is old. I've read that verse several times. I'm normally very keen. It doesn't say the child shall not. Inasemaga will not. The reason also I'm quoting this verse is that it's not a guarantee that when you bring up a child in the ways of the Lord and inculcate character in them, it's not a guarantee that they'll turn out to be well. If you've gone through the life, you know what I'm talking about. So this is my question. And this touches on materialism, which is a very, very big topic, big cancer,
very, very big event. No, let me not call it an event, but a mindset that has cropped up and has eaten the society, where even adults, and it has been passed into the children, they believe so much in materialism that even if you bring them in the biblical ways, what the Bible says, you are not very sure that they will really take this in their adult life or even in their childhood. Because as parents, we spend as much time with them, but they spend a lot of time outside there interacting with the rest. So I just want to know how can we really change this mindset that it is not really the material things that really count. In fact, I think it was yesterday evening, or was it today morning, when I was asking my daughter, what is the most important thing in life? Of course, they couldn't answer. I told them, it's knowing God. But to a young mind, that is very abstract. And then when you look at the Bible records that God gives us the power to create wealth. God doesn't give wealth. He gives us the power to create wealth. So many young people grow knowing, if I be in Christ, I will be wealthy. What we forget is that it is when you apply the principles of wealth creation, whether you know God or whether you are an atheist or whether you are an unbeliever, you will definitely grow rich. How do you marry these two ideas such that the children will grow up knowing materialism is not the thing, but knowing Christ? Question number 2, and this doesn't touch in children mostly, it's about our society and the politics. I personally am not a Democrat. Okay, I don't believe in democracy as a system. And by extension, I'm not even a registered voter because I don't believe in this system. If you look at the current, our country, for example, look at our country, for example. Parliament is not even functioning. Even if you elect somebody good, they won't do anything there. They won't change anything. It has been captured. The whole society has been captured. Even by extension, even the judiciary has been captured. And it has been happening year in, year out as you vote, year in, year out. Have you ever changed anything? Nothing. So, in fact, I've followed you in so many of your videos where you've even quoted Clark, who said, or who observed when African countries were getting independent, that if we adapt the systems the colonialists left with us, we will not succeed. And true to his word, we've never succeeded with these systems. So my question is, as young people facing the future, how will we be able to change this, given that we've been voting since the 60s and the situation remains the same?
I hear you.
Yes.
Let me share my thoughts, which you may agree with. Let me start with the question of time. I think you talked about timekeeping. Very important. I'm sure my office was coordinating with you, and you will see how my office coordinates. Because you must respect people. And once you have given your word, people must believe your word. At 8 this morning, I asked my secretary, tell me, when am I expected? And he said, arrive at 10:30. I arrived at 10:15. Because you must respect people. And once you have given your word, you must live by your word. And these are ideals that we are taught. Unfortunately, we live in a world where we have made arrogance to be. Several years ago, I was running an organization, and we then invited the then vice president. I think he was Kijana wa Malwa. There were ambassadors. The meeting was to start at 8, and he was to speak at 8:30. There were other cabinet ministers. I was the person who was running the program. So we are there. Everybody is seated. I ring him. He's 8. He says he's still at home. I say, but you were supposed to speak at 8:30. How long will it take you? He says 10 minutes. I says, I'm giving you 10 minutes. We covered this. At 9:30, I asked the minister who was there, I think it was Dalmaso Tieno, to speak. And then the man arrived at noon. And I told him, you came for lunch. Let's go for lunch. And the point that I was making is that we can, when people have gathered like this, you must respect them. There's a book I want you to read. It's written by Chinua Achebe in 1983, The Trouble with Nigeria. It could very well be with the trouble with Kenya. And he gives an example about an African so-called leader. I seldom use the word leader when I'm making reference to African politicians, except very few. But he says that one day he was in Ireland, and he was part of an audience, and the person who was supposed to be the guest of honor was the Irish Prime Minister, and he did not know him. But he saw some two gentlemen sitting in seats just like this, and he thought he was waiting for the guest of honor. Did he know that this actually was the guest of honor? He had arrived there 15 minutes before time. And he says, if it was in my country, the fellow would arrive 2 hours later. He would arrive in a convoy with a toilet and all manner of things. This is how we have defined leadership to be, not humility. So we must change. And this can only be done when we make and create an environment where leadership is about service. Today, and I've seen this with a number of Kenyan cabinet ministers, when they are going to a meeting in a hotel, his troop even carries chairs from their office to go and sit on chair. Unabeba, kama nimekuja hivi, ingekuja na kiti changu, wanakuja nacho. And you clergy are part of the problem. When you see a politician who you know is a thief, and there is no shortage of them, you know, mwizi too. Mukimwona and you are in the middle of a sermon, you stop. Mheshimiwa ameingia. Leteni mheshimiwa mbele. He's not even a member of your church. He's just in the neighborhood. He is come with the press. And you bring him, and he sits in front. And then you even forget your sermon. You now look for a sermon which suits him and massages his ego. And then you invite him to come to the pulpit to greet the people. When you do that consistently, the church building is a holy place. I remember when we were younger, when we were cleaning the church, we even feared stepping onto this side. Yeah, we feared. Ati unaenda kufagia huko. Huko ni kwa Mungu. Ni madhabahu. Sasa, wakora, mnawaruhusu. So the church is now giving pride of place to misbehavior, including lateness. If you are going to church, you must be early. The clergy are in control. And when they are in control, the only thing that can happen there is the worship of God. If you want to greet people, go and greet them outside. This is what should happen. Then people will begin to respect. And time is, I've gone to places. There was a time I went to Nigeria, and I was told that I would speak at 9. So I'm waiting at the hotel lobby at 8 in Anambra in Nigeria. No, when they came to pick me at 3 p.m. So I told them, You knew all this while that I would be speaking in the afternoon and you told me at 9? Says, you know, our people, they say they come at 9. Even when you are now called upon to speak, you have lost it all. You are so angry that you can't even be nice. So I can't agree with you more. That time, and these are things that must be drilled in people. I'm sure there are some in your congregation. Unajua huwa sijui anapigia watu simu and he asks watu wamekaa sasa ndio niingie. They are always late. And I know some people will simply shut them, say funga mlango, because it's disrespectful. And these young people, if you do it, 100% success is not guaranteed. But you try, and it becomes a national culture. Our national culture and the culture in most of Africa is a culture of disrespect. We have made leaders, those who are in the political class and in any position, they disrespect us. That is our problem. We must change that. In our neighborhood, upper neighborhood, there is something to learn from Tanzania. And I've been, luckily I've been mentored by Mwalimu Nyerere as a young man from 1984. So I had the opportunity of working with him when he was president and when he ceased to be president. Amazing. I first met him on 9th of December 1984 as a student. In a forum such as this. And how did he call me to Tanzania? Every Kenyan who was called a student leader was speaking in English. I spoke in Kiswahili. And he sent somebody. Says, yo kijana anione kabla hajaenda. Tutamlipia ndege. And I remained in Tanzania. 1984, 9th of December. From that point on, every other Tanzanian leader became my friend. And when he ceased to be the president, and he's traveling in one car, yake na moja nyingine. Sema, hizi mbwembwe na vingora ni vya nini? Mbwembwe na vingora, watu vingora hivi vya nini? Kama nataka kufika mapema, nitaondoka mapema kabla hakuna msongamano wa magari, sio kuwatesa wa Tanzania barabarani. Leadership. And the same thing I saw with John Joseph Pombe Magufuli. How did I meet him? I went to deliver the Julius, just to explain to you how respectful people are. I went to deliver the Julius Kambarage Nyerere Memorial Lecture, the 4th Memorial Lecture at the University of Dar es Salaam. And during my speech in the process, I said that people, we must magulify, and he was listening, I think. And as I'm at the airport, people ring me from State House in Dar es Salaam, say, have you left? I say, I'm gone. I'm going to Kenya. Say, bas, kesho rudi. When I arrived, they had sent a ticket. And he said, meet me at 11 at State House, Dar es Salaam. He was there alone. And we sat for 2 hours alone with him. You cannot do that here in my country, Kenya. You cannot. And I have experienced. And when you write to them, and I've seen it, and I write, I interact through my foundation with this. I write, or you call, and there are leaders that I can name in Africa. You call Paul Kagame, you call his office, somebody will return your call. Somebody will return your call. The president, Hapa, MCA. First of all, the phone will be picked by a PA. I'm saying this because there must also be something is called a national character. Ukimtaja, for example, today, if I say, huyu ni Mtanzania, what comes to your mind immediately? Upole. When I say, huyu ni Mkenya, what comes to your mind? That is the character that we have allowed to. That is how we are defined. When I say Nigeria, when I say Botswana, almost every other country, when I say Germany, precision. When I say Japan, when I say Korea, so a people in a country must help to create a character by which they are known. We have not succeeded in doing that. Can we repair it? Coming to your question, yes, we can. I do not believe, I'm very unhappy with you, must take a vote. You must take the vote because changes don't come. I keep on telling people the ministry of Christ was an apparent failure. The ministry, huyu Yesu ambaye sasa tumekusanyika hapa kwa jina lake. When he was crucified, first of all, even all his disciples were not there. They had run away. They had gone fishing. Peter and Andrew, watu wametawanyika. When now he is resurrected in the road to Emmaus, that is when a new spirit came on the day of the Pentecost. When they are saying they are drunk, but Peter is saying it is before the hour of noon. The persecution of the church, if you want instant solutions, they will never come. I no longer think about things happening in my lifetime. What is your lifetime? It's too short. Things can't happen. Some British was talking about us when we were asking the king of the British to apologize, saying that they came here and they did other things. They saved Africa from wars. And I retorted in an interview, do you know that there was a time in England when they had the War of the Roses, English were fighting for 100 years non-stop. Non-stop for 100 years. Go and Google the War of the Roses. So when you hear that we are suffering, even the United States of America that we talk about, after the War of Independence, was there not a civil war? And after the Civil War, was there not the Civil Rights Movement in 1963? And after that, have we not seen the people of color being discriminated against? You play your part. China, today, everything you have, even these bottles, I think some of them, if you look, the material is from China. In our lifetime, those of us who are 45 and above, we have seen China rise. I do not know how many of you, Mzee here, will remember when we had a material which was used for school uniform called Japan. It was made by Natil Ginger in Uganda. And there was another one called Korea, which was from Korea. In those days, when you said Japan, it meant low quality. When you said Korea, it meant low quality. When you saw anything from China, it meant low quality. Today, any quality you want from the world, China is the factory of the world. What have they succeeded in doing? Look at the Chinese when they are building our roads there, from Sunday to Sunday. And the engineers are wearing overalls, and the Kenyan engineer comes there for 2 minutes with kitambi hivi. Ya anakuja kuangalia tu. Character, national character. So don't be disappointed. I think we are making mistakes, but we are also making gains. This is how nations grow. And I believe that not in your lifetime, perhaps not even in your children's lifetime, perhaps not, there is a Malawi saying, a Chichewa saying, that more important than our children are our children's children. More important than our children are our children's children. That is how you think. And we who claim to be Christians, we are in the best space to understand that. Look at, when you look at this thing called Christianity, this church has been persecuted. The persecution of the church. I don't know, how many of you have read the book of Romans keenly? It was written in the year AD 57 to AD 58. That is the longest letter of Paul, the book of Romans. And that letter was written before Paul had set foot in Rome. And look at it. But when he gets there, what do? He's arrested, he's persecuted, and ultimately killed. So we will suffer. The church as we know it has been divided. The body of Christ has been divided, but you must never give up. Which brings me to the question of how you bring up your children. And I said it before, and all of us know it. I'm sure sometimes when you are sending your children, some of you have sent your children overseas or to boarding schools. You sit them down and say, Kemunto, here we have been eating Blue Band, and other nice things. We are now sending you like a sheep unto wolves. That is the best you can do. Tell them where you are going. Me, your father, I'm not there. And when you are having those conversations, your wife is normally very silent. Do you hear, my daughter? And you hear, occasionally your wife will say, you hear? If only to punctuate. In other words, you are telling the child, we have done what is humanly possible from our perspective. Now that you are leaving us, the good things that we have tried to inculcate in you, make them stand out. You are going to boarding school, you are going to meet people that you have never met. You are going to meet teachers that you've never met. You are going to be introduced to things. They are going to tell you how cool it is to smoke a cigarette. They are going to tell you how cool it is to take cocaine. They are going to tell you how cool it is to be a little tipsy by taking those nyonyos. But my daughter, did we not go to church and you read the Bible? You even quote the Bible. You even go to Proverbs and Psalms and you say, then you pray and you unleash them unto the world. Because the world is now a totally different environment. And that is why, therefore, we say, mkunji angali mbichi, so that she or he is able to say, no, but my father told me this, but my mother told me this, but my father is like this. That, I think, is very critical. And how you treat people. How do you treat your spouses? How do you, if this happens even in offices, when you run an office, when I want to rebuke my staff, I do not do so in public. Call them to my office. And I sit down when nobody is hearing. But when you want to rebuke even the weakest person publicly, you've got to have a spirit of discernment. And once you do that, it is only your best that you can do. And many of you here have testimonies of how your children could have been in trouble. Then you recall them, and by intervention, they begin to follow the right path. Constant prayer, constant example, doing things by example. I think example is the most important thing. Don't say this and do this. Don't tell people don't come home after 10 and every day you are coming home in the morning. And if you are late, let everybody know. When I travel, and I travel quite a bit, the very first thing that I do is to tell people, I am in this place, in this hotel. And I remember at one time, we were in Kigali in Rwanda. So the hotel, there was a fire alarm. And I was in a hotel. So I said, this is a good thing. And it also reminded me one thing. This is a funny one. When you are going to bed, always dress. Because when the fire alarm was... people came out in different states of undress. But I was very comfortable. I was properly dressed. There is a book I want you to read. It's called Mother Always Said. Somebody can Google it, by Robert Popovich. Mother Always Said by Robert Popovich. It's a nice book. It tells you about these little things that mother always told you. The things he's saying in that book are things that the mother always told them. My daughter, when you are going out, make sure your undergarments are clean. Because if you faint, we'll undress you. In order to treat you, let it be found that your undergarments are clean. So, little things. And I believe that there is no 100% success. And I conclude by telling you, even this is to be found in the Bible. Look at Jeremiah. Jeremiah says, these evil men, why is it that you make them to be like the cedars of Lebanon? And I want you to go and read a book that many of us Christians don't read, the book of Habakkuk. It's a very short book. And I find it very interesting because Habakkuk starts by accusing God. Oh God, and you know it. But he says this. Then at the end, I want somebody to read the very last portion of the book of Habakkuk. I think the last chapter. the last two verses of Habakkuk. And I find that very powerful. And the message that we are getting from Habakkuk is that you don't always get what you want. That is the reality of the world. And does it mean that God is not there? No. Has somebody found the book, the last book of Habakkuk, the last? Yes. Just read it.
Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in God, my Savior. The sovereign Lord in my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. He enables me to go on the heights.
Thank you. That is how he concludes by, after accusing God, and God responds to him, say, now that you are, were you there when I was creating the earth? Were you there? And then he surrenders to God. And I think that is what we don't, many of us are very angry with God. How many of you here are angry with God? That anger is justified, is what makes us human, is what makes you frustrated even with your government. Until the day, I personally don't use the word democracy. I stopped using it. I use the word governance, because democracy has now come to mean that my candidate has just been declared the winner in Liberia. So I sent him a message and I said, now that you have come to power, don't change. And the candidate who lost had the grace to call him. George Weah called Bwakai and said, brother, I've lost it. By a very small margin. I don't think the margin is even to 100,000 votes. Very small. But he said, Liberia is bigger than all of us. I concede defeat. Run the country. We must, as a country, reach that stage where it is not life and death, where you know you win some, you lose some. And when we reach that stage, then we are in a good space. And I think that all of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So we must be humble in the knowledge, particularly you young ones, as I conclude. I would urge you, choose your friends carefully. Choose the books that you read carefully, because books are also teachers, silent teachers. And I tell people, read. I read the Bible keenly. I read the Quran keenly. I read the Hindu Gita keenly. And when therefore I choose to be a Christian, is out of knowledge, not out of ignorance. So that when I hear people condemn the Quran, and I ask them, when was the last time you read the Quran? I have Quran in my house. I have Ka, the book written by some Africans called the African Bible, and I read all of them. So I say, you are Quran. Have you read the Quran? No. Have you read the Talmuds of the Jewish? No, I haven't. Have you read the Hindu Gita? No, I haven't. Then why are you condemning that which you do not know? Because it is in reading all these that the Bible now begins to make sense. It is in reading and understanding all these that the message of Christ now begins to make sense. So choose what you read, and anybody who chooses something when there is a series of things, when you are given only one thing, you have no choice. It means if you are born in a Muslim world, you could have been a Muslim. If you are born in India, you could be a Hindu. But when you are familiar with all these things, yet you make the choice. This clergy will tell you that they go through what is called comparative religion. They do. So that when they make the choice they make, it is out of conviction. And it shall be well with you. But it shall not be easy for you. It shall be well with you, but it shall not be easy for you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Professor. I know Professor has but I was feeling like we really need a question from the teens and maybe from the youth. So do we?
From young ones.
The young ones. Okay.
Thank you. I would like to say I'm very delighted in your presence. I'm very happy for today's session. So my question will be, how do you go around, when we're speaking about discernment, character, values, how does it come in when it opposes leadership in the church, in school, in corporate setting, and all that? Thank you.
That
Let's
is a
hear this
very
other one first.
wonderful question.
Thank you. Assuming you're my parent and I ask you, Father, why do I seek approval from people that I don't even know, from my peers? Or why do other people seek approval from me? That is a question for all the youths.
Why do you seek approval? That is peer pressure. And there'll always be peer. You want to take another one?
Is there a third one before he answers from the young ones? Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Prof.
Peer pressure, you may want to know, even amongst adults. There is a friend of mine who was driving with a wife from their rural home. I've said, we must buy a double cabin pickup. He says, why? We are not farmers. Why are we buying a double cabin? And the wife said, but so and so have a double cabin. So now we are going to buy things that other people have bought. So even don't think it is only amongst you that there is peer pressure. Even amongst us, there is peer pressure. Say, they have bought a new car. But I don't have money to buy a new car. So there is a sense in which contentment is a very important thing. Contentment does not mean that you do not struggle to improve the quality of your life, but accepting the circumstances of your life and living comfortably within it. That, I think, is a big thing. Because if you are in this competition, you'll find yourself in trouble. And I've seen in the legal profession, I've seen many, many young people who are my students. One of my students died. One of my I thought he was a good student, but he died at one time. He jumped off the 4th floor because he had stolen clients' money and clients were coming for him, and he literally jumped and died. Another of my students who is also died. What happened is that a couple were buying a piece of land, and they were nurses in the United Kingdom, so they sent him money. They sent him 800,000 Kenya shillings, and instead of putting up a deposit at a place called Komarok, he stole the money, disappeared for 1 week. The next thing we heard, he had been found somewhere in Kangundo. Peer pressure, because you look at another advocate who is your classmate, you have no idea what he's doing, and you now want to live like them. You must stop that. Easier said than done. But that also depends on who you talk to, who your peers are, who your friends are. If you are friends who reinforce one another and you know your limits, then you are content. But if you have friends who are telling you, hujui bana, kuna mganga moja nilimuona mzuri tu, tangu nimuone mambo yangu yamenyoka. So you begin moving from this to that, looking for wealth. Then unaingia kwa mtego. And the things we are telling you, there is no shortage of them. So amongst us, there is peer pressure. You younger people, there is pressure at school. Simu gani? Infinix. My mom works with UN. This is what they bring. So once they do that, there is somebody who is prepared to buy you Infinix. I know students and people who have been caught trying to sell organs in order to buy something. Yesterday I was with some young girls who work in Kiambu in the area of human trafficking. And Kenya is one of the leading stations in Africa for human trafficking. adults and girls and boys in human trafficking, peer pressure will always be there. And what helps you in the face of peer pressure? Character. Kile uliambiwa nyumbani zama zile, my father said, mother always said, Robert Popovich. And the pressure to your generation is even worse now. There was a man who was, I don't know, I hope you did not see him, but there was a Nigerian who was displaying his wealth. It was called Hush Puppy. How many of you saw Hush Puppy? Yeah, if you saw Hush Puppy, I think he's now been released from jail. He was displaying the things that he had bought, and he was in Dubai. Then they arrested him and he was jailed in the United States of America. Don't be confused by what you see. Good things come slowly, very slowly. There is a book that I read as a young man called Zoba the Greek. It's written by a man called Nikos Kazantzakis. Zoba the Greek. And in that book, Zoba, who is the main character, is seeing how a caterpillar is changing, the process of change. And he says, he goes, somebody wants to disturb it, and he says, no, nature takes its own course. Allow it to take its own course. Choose your hobbies early. I personally chose my hobby early. I'm a martial artist, a very highly trained martial artist. I started practicing karate in 1975. I still do karate to date. I'm now a mixed martial artist. What is your hobby? Choose things that will distract you from the wrong things. If it is martial arts or things, they consume your energy positively. Once you've done that and your energy is consumed positively, then you have no time for mischief. But if you have time all the time, wewe unayumba yumbishwa tu. Kile chochote kinakuja onza twende hivi. You are the party girl, as they say. You are the life of the party. You worry. So peer pressure, if life without pressure is not life. My good friend here, if today he chose to start a ministry of his own, in the next 10 years he'll possibly have a private jet. He can recruit a few of us to pretend to have twisted mouths. Then he heals us. And once he heals a few of us and we do publicity, we'll be riding in private jets. But he has made a choice to be faithful to this ministry. He too can do the same. But there is something that tells him, I'm sure at the occasion, then God tells him, no, I would be cheating God. That, I think, is what it is. And comes to my question. When you have character, do you oppose things? Yes. There is the Bible. There are two things in the Bible how to say. John the Baptist. When John the Baptist is going and talking about Herodias and say, he is shouting about Herodias, oh, you Herodias, you have taken your brother's wife. And that is John the Baptist. And ultimately he was arrested and Salome was persuaded to ask for his head. That is one way of conveying a message. And there is a time for doing that. Then there is another one, Nathan. Nathan goes to David and tells him, oh, Majesty, there was a person in a land. There was a very rich man with many animals, many cattle, and then there was this man with a ewe of a lamb. And then when there was a visitor, this rich man took the ewe of the lamb. And this ewe of the lamb, this man used to keep it and live with it as his daughter. And then David says, if there is such a man in my kingdom, that man must be punished. He says, oh king, it is you. It is you who has taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite and caused him to be killed by the sword of the Amorites. The sword shall never leave your house. The sword shall never leave your house. And when I see the war in Gaza, I know the sword has never left the house. Never. But you see how he puts it. He would have said, oh, you king of discernment. Environment defines context. I am in the business, not in the business, but I criticize and critique government and government officials in this country and outside of the country. But the thing that I do, when you see me criticize any leader, I'll have written to them. I just don't come out of anywhere. I've tried to reach you pole pole. Whether in the opposition, whether they are president here, I've written to all of them, tried to, so that they know. When they now see me come out and say, this is the position that I take, they know. And I do that and I travel across the African continent and I say the things that I say. And some of them, if you look at them, they say, yes, he told us before. They know that I told them. The rest of the audience does not know. In other words, I've tried the Nathan method. I'm now using the John method, and I'm prepared for the consequences. You must be prepared for the consequences. If you are a coward, remain a coward. But you've got to have a sense of discernment. You speak to the people with the firmness that opens their eyes. You can say a bad thing in a nice way. Don't insult people. Just speak about their character, because all of us have an ego to be massaged. How do you say? And you disagree. And let me tell you, when you disagree with people, I have students in my chambers. And when I tell them things, they come and say, but we don't agree with you on this one. I think you have made a mistake. Then I say, yeah. Why do you think I've made a mistake? Then he told me this. The following day, when I'm walking in the morning alone, I now remember, because I do, that's my thinking time. That young man, that young lady told me this. The following day, I have the courage to go and say, yeah, I was wrong. I think you had it right. You must have the ability also to concede that you are wrong. This idea that you know everything is a very dangerous thing. At one time I was teaching, I was the head of the Kenya School of Law many years ago. So students come to me and they tell me there's a teacher who is teaching us, and it appears that the teacher does not know what she is talking about. So they told me it was relating to Companies Act, which had been repealed. So I told them, what is it? Said, the teacher is teaching us on the basis of law that has already been repealed, which suggests to us that she is unfamiliar with the law as it stands today. Then I called the teacher and said, what is the law relating to company law in Kenya today? She had no idea that the law had been repealed. We had to let the individual go. I told her, you cannot teach. But somebody had tried to go and tell him that we think we are not doing the right. He says, I know. This idea that you know everything is a dangerous thing. Things may escape you, even when you are the very best. So when you oppose with a view to opening people's eyes, and don't fear, but choose style, choose context, choose moment. And don't do so to humiliate people. Nobody wants to be humiliated. If you want to humiliate people, even the most humble of the people will change their color. Even a watchman is a friend of mine. I never argue with watchmen. Wakiniambia fungua gari, ninafungua. Because this fellow, you do not know on which side of the bed he walks. He is at your place at 5. The fellow must have woken up at 4 a.m., has eaten nothing, and you are coming there because you have a big car and you think that you are very important. He'll slap you, and what happens thereafter? He'll go there, yule mnamuona kule, tumemzaba makofi kabisa. Kwa hivyo respect people, even the lowliest of people, respect them. And then they'll respect you. Respect is reciprocal. And I have discovered this. When you respect people, watch people who are watchmen or house helps, even when you have a house help and they have served you, say thank you. Sema asante. Huyu mtu ambaye anakupa chakula, akiweka sumu je? Anaweza kuweka sumu tu. Kwa hivyo, when you respect people, even a cleaner. How many of you here have watched the film Gandhi by Sir Richard Attenborough? And I want you to watch the film Gandhi. In the film Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi has just built an ashram. And this is a real life story. You either read Gandhi or his wife called Kastuba. So when he has built the ashram, people are timetabled to clean the toilet. And one of the people whom he has put in the roster to clean the toilet is his wife, Kastuba. And he comes home and finds that the toilet is a general public toilet to be used by everybody. The wife has not cleaned the toilet. And he goes to her and I say, why did you not clean the toilet? And he becomes very angry. It's the only publicly recorded instant where he was violent toward the wife. And he pushes the wife and then he retreats in the movie. Then the wife thinks and he tells him, I will now clean the toilet. And the Mahatma tells her, you either clean it with joy or not at all. And then he subsequently said, in this ashram, perhaps the most important worker is the toilet cleaner. Do we ever think like that? When you go to a public place, you expect a clean toilet. Who do you think should clean it? Do you leave the toilet when you use it in the same situation as you would want to find it? Or you say, somebody will clean it? So when you go to the toilet, you mount like a bird. And when you see a toilet cleaner, respect them. When you see people, whatever work they are doing, ask yourself, if they were not there, what would the facility that I'm using be like? You want to use and see a clean facility, but you don't respect the person who is making it clean. These are little things that I think come to answer your question as to how you conduct yourself. Some of these things are easier said than done. When I am walking in public places and I see a paper, I collect. And I keep them to go and throw them. But you and me, we come here, we are using this bottle and we are driving away or in a matatu, then we throw it. Then we wonder, siku hizi kuna takataka nyingi. But you are part of the problem, not part of the solution. How many of you grew up in Nairobi when we used to sing Kamero na Kauti na Kagoro Kamwe? There were those days when there was garbage collection in Nairobi here on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And all of us wanted to be garbage collectors. And they were very nice vehicles and they swung and said, Kau, Kau, Kamero. Those were good days. In other words, things can actually work. So you young people, let me conclude by saying that this to me is a very good thing. And I've seen it when we were at the All Saints Cathedral. There was a time we were losing the youth when our bishop was Bishop Njoka. Then we started something called the Journey of Faith, and we raised 100 million. Then we developed, now we are doing the CTC, which is 2 billion. And the whole idea was to retain the youth. Because if there are no youth in the church is dying. The church is dying. And we cannot allow the church to die. I mean, you have an army, even if you are not achieving 100%, the mere fact that some of you are going to spend here, is it a whole day? Almost a whole day to be here, you young people, that is commendable. And some of you will have testimonies when you are a little older about these activities. And don't take it for granted. And the beauty of this assembly, which I must commend, is the mix. So that you have not separated the young ones from the old ones, the men from the women. There is no society where there are only women, where there are only men. whether they are only young people. The real society is that you have this mix and there is an interplay of emotions on a daily basis. And I work with young people across the continent of Africa. Our foundation has a presence in 50 African countries. So I work and know how young people are on a daily basis because I'm in WhatsApp groups with all the 50 countries. So I know what is happening in Liberia, what is happening in Lesotho, what is happening in Sao Tome and Principe, what is happening in Tunisia, what is happening in Morocco. Young people. So and I'm convinced that it can be good. I'll give you a final example. There's a group of young people that tell you how the power of the word is very important. In the year 2017, I was in Monrovia in Liberia. I met 5 young people. They had collected $15,000. They wanted to pay to people to take them to Europe, across the Sahara Desert. They had heard me say that young Africans must remain in Africa. And I went to a place where they were, and they had $15,000, which they came to show me. From that day, they decided they were not going to Europe. They decided to open cyber cafes. If you go to Liberia now, the biggest cyber cafes in Monrovia is by those young people. The biggest, and they have several places. They cannot go. They are now employing. They have employed more than 50 people out of that $15,000. It can be done just by taking a word and converting it to something. Maybe they would have died in the Sahara Desert, as many of them died, or in the Mediterranean. So never take for granted the things that you've been told today. The Reverend was telling you about character. He was telling you about character. All of us are talking about character, and it is not easy. But apply yourself, and it will be well. God bless you.
Thank you ever so much. Mother always said, I think we've learned so much. I know we have so many questions. I know the Mothers Union who are here probably had questions, the Kama had questions, and so on. But you can see the time is so short. I wish we had come so early and we had more time, otherwise we would have actually asked more and more questions. But I want to really thank Professor for such a wonderful presentation and downloading his knowledge and challenging all of us. You know, Archdeacon, umewatch how many movies? You know, Bwana Kamau, wewe ni mwalimu, vitabu zile umesoma? You know, so challenging. I think it was a very good opportunity for all of us to be challenged. Do you agree with me? Yes. To be challenged and also to realize that we can make an impact in our society by being different from all others. I think I really like the whole idea of asking whether we are really Christians. Are you really a Christian, and do you really understand what it means? And does your character and values actually reflect, is it reflective of the Christian in you? I think that's really a big challenge for all of us, Professor. And I hope that when we invite you again, you'll come and you will still download more knowledge to us. So with that, I think without much ado, I want to invite the Archdeacon, who is the host, for a quick vote of thanks, and then we'll tell you what we go to next. So Archdeacon, karibu, just to appreciate the session.
You all agree it has been a good moment for all of us, and we have learned, and we are now going out with something. These came as a result of the challenges, and we want to thank God that Professor has helped us to understand the challenges we are going through. Not only the youth or the teens, but the whole society is in want of changing. And therefore, Professor, we want to say that tomorrow we'll give a positive result when we meet because of what you have done to us. And I know it is not only to ACK St. Andrews, this will cut across to the Kenyan society, because people who are here and do differently, and tomorrow they are going to go out so that they can bring changes. And the only thing that we can do is for us to work out on our character. Everything goes around character. And therefore, we are grateful that you are able to tackle it and help us, and mostly that we are going to leave a mark today, and those who are going to take it over, they will continue with that. And therefore, we want to say we are grateful, and may the Lord bless you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Archdeacon. So let us all start, a standing ovation to appreciate Professor, and we put our hands together to say thank you, and may God bless you in your traveling, in your going out. May He bless you and be with you, and may you continue to download the knowledge to as many as possible. So thank you ever so much, and may God bless you. Asanteni sana. So sasa madamu, si wimbo kidogo ndio miguu inyooke kidogo. Just a quick chorus, and then we'll tell you what next.
Let's clap our hands. Ainuliwe Mungu wetu leo, ainuliwe Bwana wa mabwana, ainuliwe Mungu wetu leo, ainuliwe Bwana wa mabwana, ainuliwe Mungu wetu leo, ainuliwe Bwana wa mabwana, ainuliwe Bwana wa mabwana, ainuliwe, anayetujali, ainuliwe Bwana wa mabwana, ainuliwe Bwana wa mabwana. You are so worthy, so worthy, so worthy, my Lord. So worthy, so worthy, so oh, that's why I praise you in the morning. That's why I praise you in the noontime. That's why I praise you. That's why I praise you all the time. That's why I lift you in the morning. That's why I lift you. That's why I lift you. That's why I lift you all the time.
Okay, you can take your seat. Wow, that's really great, and we really want to thank God. Siameenda sasa, tunaweza kuongea vile tunataka sasa. So we really thank God. I think that was really a wonderful session. And like I said, the main purpose of a symposium is to discuss a subject matter, and that is what we've been discussing. So for now, what we want to do is to take a short break. And during that short break, you might grab yourself a cup of tea just to keep yourself a bit more stronger and energetic. And then we are going to come back and we shall have a session now to interrogate whatever we have been going through in different groups. Like ask ourselves, what have we had? What are we going to do about it? And when we come back, we'll go into groups. You have the teens now meet, and they will ask themselves certain questions. We'll tell you what will be happening. We'll have the youth do the same. We'll have the rest of us do the same. And then after that, we can come out with some actions as a result of the 2023 Symposium, which really we feel very privileged that you all came and you are a part of. Remember, the whole idea is to make sure that we make an impact and that we can inculcate character and values among ourselves during this 21st century. So, Madam Agatha, si unaweza kuombea kikombe ya chai tafadhali. And then we just take a few minutes, only 15 minutes, if you like, engage with one another, and we want to plead with you. Since you came for the symposium, tafadhali usiondoke. Make sure that at least you participate in that session where we will delve into whatever we have gone through with the professor, and we ask ourselves those pertinent questions. So, Madam Agatha, tafadhali.
Shall we pray? Our Father and our God, we want to thank you most sincerely because, God, you have been with us. You have allowed us to be here. As we think about how we grow our character from where we are to where we would like to be for the glory of your name. At this moment, Lord, we want to thank you that there is tea for us, and whatever else we may partake, oh God, we receive it with thanksgiving and pray for those that, God, have nothing to eat, that, God, you may remember them. And as we partake and fellowship with one another, that, God, this food may not harm us in any way, but, Lord, that it may nourish our bodies. Remember them that are praying, Lord, they are fasting. May their prayers reach you. God, we thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
So I'm being told that that will be serving as your appetizer because we have lunch afterwards. So I know people are looking at their watch, it's almost 1. And therefore, when we come back and we have the session, then we'll go back and have some lunch, and then we can go for some team building session. For those of you who may not have already known where how the geography looks like, we have some washrooms just behind this building. So if you walk around, then you'll find some washrooms just behind here, just in case you want to use the washrooms. So you're most welcome. Make sure that you interact. Make sure you know each other. If you have not interacted, grab a cup of tea at the back. I think that's where it is already arranged. And then we come back in 15 minutes. Karibuni sana.